Hey guys, it's Greg with By the Bootstraps, btbootstraps.com. Check out the store, check out the social media. So today we went and saw Captain Marvel. This is a Captain Marvel review. There will be spoilers-ish in there. Try and keep it vague-ish. But we saw the movie. This is the 21st Marvel movie, Marvel Cinematic Universe movie. And kind of a bore, honestly. I really didn't want to see this movie primarily because of Brie Larson and the whole feminist push that she was kind of putting on the movie, her press tour and everything else. But I had a real good friend of mine went to see the movie, and plus I wanted to see how this movie ties into Avengers Endgame. And so we went and saw the movie today. And this movie has no idea as to what it wants to be. You know, it wants to be a buddy cop movie with Samuel L. Jackson and Brie Larson, or it wants to be a fish out of water movie where she's from outer space with no memory. She comes to Earth and she's trying to figure out who she is and what she's doing. And then it wants to be like a intergalactic sci-fi movie at the same time. All right, so Brie Larson's character is goes by another name called Versa. She is on this planet of Kree, where apparently she gets kidnapped, and there's a whole convoluted story of her backstory that they kind of felt like they just kind of rushed through the story just to get to the point to where they can introduce Samuel L. Jackson's character Nick Fury into the movie, and that's essentially where the movie starts. All right, they don't really define how she gets her powers. They say it's from an explosion, from a ship, from a Kree vessel, and somehow she absorbs the energy of this explosion, okay? But they don't say how she does it. They don't say why she does it. Essentially, she's powerful, but there's no indication as to why she's this way. And the movie starts off very strong on a very feminist push. They show her doing these scenes. They show her going through like this trial period where people are obviously telling her, you can't do this, you're a woman, this is not your place, this is not where you belong, blah, blah, blah. And they don't, like, it sets it up, it really sets it up to show that she's overpowering this. And almost from the get-go, my wife and daughter who came with, my daughter was bored of the movie completely. I mean, she was very disinterested in the movie. But I looked over at my wife and I was like, hey, what do you think about what's going on? And immediately she goes, I can't get into this movie because I can't stand her character. Now, she hasn't been following the social media, online petitions, and the interviews and stuff like that with Brie Larson. So she really doesn't, she didn't know, like, to the extent of what was going on. I mean, we've talked about it, we've discussed it, but she herself wasn't, like, overly following this, right? But she's watching this and just looks at me and goes, I can't get into this character. You know, she's overconfident, almost to the point of being smug in her performance. And she's just not likable when she's by herself. Now, when she's with Samuel L. Jackson and they're doing their buddy cop part, yeah, it's kind of entertaining. It's kind of funny. And there are a couple of moments in the movie that are legitimately funny. But there's so much of it where her attitude is like, I'm a strong, predominant female. Well, the problem is when you write a character to be that and you don't give definitions or reasons as to why she should be that, she just comes across, and it's not just she, it could be he too. Your character comes across as a cocky, know-it-all asshole, which is exactly what her character came across. It didn't have a strong feminist lead. It came across as just a bitch. A very powerful bitch, for no reason. You know, in the movie, she's got this device on the back of her neck, and they kind of allude that the Kree have given her this power and that they're allowing her to use this ability. And they make several references in the movie that we can give it to you, but we can also take it away from you. Well, then it finds out, no, they can't. They didn't give her that ability. She has that ability, and she overpowers the device that's on her to remove it to unlock her ability, to where she just becomes a god. All right, there's a scene in the movie at the end where she is battling, you know, the Kree the Kree army They're firing these giant ass ballistic missiles at the Earth, and she by herself, with no training on how to use this power or ability, just goes, annihilates all these ballistics, and then proceeds to fly through and destroy an entire ship, taking no damage, having no effect. I mean, superhero movies are not fun if you have a character with no defining weakness. You know, Superman has kryptonite. You know, Batman has his Joker and the death of his parents. All right, Robert Downey Jr. has the Iron Man has the power of his arc reactor in his chest. You know, there's limitations. Captain America can only do so much. You know, all these other characters can only do so much, and they've given her now essentially godlike powers and abilities. And the last act of the movie is just boring to watch because it's not an act. All right, it's an overpowering extravaganza to where it takes away the tension, because you're like, well, what tension is there? You've now established that she is basically just a multi-killing badass at this point. It's not interesting to watch. And you know, acting wise, outside of Brie Larson, everyone else did a fantastic job. Samuel L. Jackson did a good job. The guy who played the main villain did a good job, which they really did something in the movie which I thought was really interesting, and I actually really enjoyed. You know, you think that the Kree are the good guys and that the Skrull, which are the shape-changing shapeshifters that are green, they're the bad guys. Well, come to find out, no, it's the other way around. The Kree are actually the bad guys, and they manipulated the Skrull by basically genocide on them. They don't, again, problem with the movie and storytelling, that they don't give a defined reason as to why they're doing this. It tells you in dialogue in the movie that Kree are good, Skrulls are bad, but then you find out Skrulls are good, Kree are bad. But there's no definition, there's no explanation as to why this is. You know, I sat there in the movie going, why are they fighting? What is the purpose of this? You know, all I know is that these guys are good, these guys are bad, but then it switches. These guys are bad, no, these guys are good. But again, the entire movie I'm going, I don't get the point of this. There's no explanation. But I guess we're not supposed to think about those kind of things like a coherent plot. We're just to accept, oh, Brie Larson's a badass. Okay, why? You know, she gets an ability and a power that they don't explain. She unlocks an ability and a power that she doesn't train for, which makes her even stronger. She basically becomes invincible. There's a little tie into Endgame at the end of the movie, but it's so insignificant that you honestly could not watch this movie and it would have no effect on going into Endgame, from what I could tell. You know, I mean, outside of introducing the character. All right, but they could have done that anyway. If they're going to just shoehorn her in the movie, there's really no significant reason as to having this film. All right, and forget about, you know, what you might think about it, or about her character or whatever. Just as a movie itself, there's so many inconsistent plot points that just don't make any sense. And then the one thing that I heard too about this cat, this Goose the cat that everyone seems to love, he steals the show. Maybe I missed it. Yeah, he swallows the Tesseract, which, again, that doesn't make any sense. How in the hell could you have a device that has already been established in previous movies to be sitting at the bottom of the ocean at this point, from Captain America: First Avenger, is all of a sudden on this Kree, station, this scientific station that's hovering outside of Earth? The cat, who is an alien, not a cat, swallows it. How did it get there? How, especially when they establish it's already in another location. So they now have the Tesseract, which is obviously one of the Infinity Stones. The cat swallows it because it's an alien, swallows some other animals, and people are going, "Oh, the cat was so great, it was so wonderful." No, it was plot convenience for the sake of plot convenience. You know, it's like they shoehorned it in, and then they do something really stupid in the movie, you know, to show how Nick Fury loses his eye. Does he lose it in some getting double crossed like they indicated in Winter Soldier? Does he lose it by trusting someone that he shouldn't have trusted? No, the cat scratches his eye out for no reason. Like literally no reason. He picks up the cat and says something to him, and the cat hisses at him, and like that one time, oh, now his eye's missing. Or damaged. You know, they didn't quite show it gone, they just showed him wearing an eye patch. I just looked at my wife and going, for real? Like that, I think my exact words are you fucking serious? This movie, and they filmed all this in the 90s, which is kind of funny because they were showing like she and her co-pilot, you know, she's apparently in the Air Force, and they're flying these experimental planes, you know, again, heavy on the feminism on it, you know, higher, stronger, faster, whatever, further, you know, as they're getting in these planes, you know, like, oh, we'll show these boys what to do and this and that. Heavy on the feminism that, again, which it didn't need it. Had they taken the identity politics out of the movie, it probably would have been better. You know, they have an entire, like, their whole entire thing about this movie that's set in the 90s. Well, outside of Radio Shack and the fact that she landed in a blockbuster, if you take those two things out, none of it else would have mattered. You know, oh, they had 90s music. Yeah, well, so what? That music's still played on the radio today. So it's not like it's removed from our culture. We see it and hear it all the time, you know? But then they make it a point again to shove that feminist bullshit down our throat. When they do the fight scene in the end, it's done to No Doubt I'm Just a Girl, which I actually love that song. I love that entire record, but it wasn't needed for this. It was just shoehorning and almost fisting you with another reference of feminism, which this is before she goes supernova and Super Saiyan, just kicks the shit out of everything. You know, it wasn't necessary. Had they toned that down significantly, I think it would have made a much better movie experience. You know, and from a technical standpoint of this movie, I mean, I know some people are going to disagree with me, but this was one of the most laziest shot movies with a color palette I've ever seen. It was very drab, you know. None of the colors popped. The only thing that kind of really popped was her suit at the end. But outside of that, it was a very boring looking movie, you know, for a Marvel movie. You know, I was expecting much more, you know, intrigue. I mean, hell, the Hulk movie is better than this when it comes to the way it was shot and filmed. It's like everything in this movie shot under a screen of like murky water. You know, it was one thing that just drive me nuts when I'm watching the movie. I'm like, nothing stands out, nothing's crisp, nothing is like clean. I mean, the Black Panther, for example, when they do that that Korean chase scene where they're fighting on the cars and they're chasing that down and they're trying to get Ulysses Grant and stuff like that. That's a really, although stupid point in the movie, it's a clean shot. It's very crisp, clear, and you notice everything that's going on. Not in this movie. I mean, it looks like someone took a water filter and just like hovered it over the camera the entire time. So it's not an overly interesting movie. It's not a necessary movie. You don't even have to watch it to understand the events going into Endgame. They fist that feminism shit right down your throat the entire time. It's very frustrating. You know, the demographics that I was with, again, 2 women, my wife and my daughter, both of them had no interest in the movie. I mean, my daughter, who was 8 years old, this should have been her target movie, the target audience. You know, this is what the campaign was. Get a girl to go see Captain Marvel. All right, well, yeah, well, I took one. And she was bored out of her mind. You know, this movie as it stands here, it's like a C-. You know, there are some things, like the other characters are pretty good, especially the guy who played the main villain. His character was actually really interesting, and once they did the whole switch of like the good guys to the bad guys and the bad guys to the good guys, I would have loved to have seen more of that film. You know, the back and forth as to how this started, what were they doing, where were they going, what was the intent, you know, all of that would have been so far more interesting of a story. You know, had they toned down Captain Marvel's, just again heavy-handed on the feminism, it would have been more interesting. You know, I don't know why they felt the need to do this. You know, because it puts a sour note going into other Marvel movies coming up. Because again, you just didn't need it. Anyway, I say the movie at best is like a C-. You know, it could have been a lot better. Comment below, let me know what you guys think. Check out the store, b2bootstraps.com. I'll talk to you guys later.